Yep, you're on the set.
Great. Good evening. It is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 2025. It is 5:51. I'm committee chair. This is a regular scheduled meeting of the Business Economic Development Committee. Committee Chair Rick Fournier. We're joined by other committee members, Councilor Fish, Councilor Leonard, Councilor Mallard. And we're also joined by Councilor Tremble, Councilor Dean, and Councilor Beck. And with us at the table is Ann Krieg, the Director of Business Economic Development. First up, Land Development Code updates.
Yep, our planning officer, Anya Collett's here to give some more updates.
So the first item in front of you tonight is about changing our fees. A lot of our land development fees, and when we look at the actual staff time that we spend on them, a lot of them are actually overcharging for that staff time, especially when you get into like larger site developments and larger SLOTAs, because we have tiered rates that go up with the size of the project. But our staff time doesn't tend to actually increase that much when you get a larger project. And so we're proposing to actually decrease quite a few of those fees. There are just a few that would increase a little bit, so like minor subdivision, major subdivision, but even those fees, the difference would decrease as you get larger projects. The other difference is with our advertising fees, we are proposing a slight decrease for advertising conditional use in mobile home parks because the BDN charges us less than what we charge people, but we're proposing an increase for regular zoning map amendments, and then proposing a new advertising fee for site location development or SLOTA, because we have to advertise for that, but we don't currently charge for that. And then the other portion was zone changes, just the staff processing. Again, I think our current fees are way over what we actually spend on staff time for those. So we're proposing a pretty large decrease for zoning map amendments. So that's really the gist of it. As I laid out in the memo, these high fees, especially when it comes to creating housing, can really increase the cost quite a bit, especially for larger projects, and can be somewhat of a barrier. So we just wanted to put that in front of you.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments, Councilor Trumbull?
No, I would just say I've heard more than once from people that they thought the fees are quite high to do for some of these projects they've had to do in the city. But have we done an analysis of what the impact would be if we had these fees been in place last year, what the budget impact would be? How much money we'd lose?
We haven't done that.
I mean, I know it doesn't just pay for itself and pay for staff, but I mean, it goes to the bottom line of the department. So I mean, I think I would be very supportive, but not if it's gonna impact, have a huge impact and throw the budget out of whack. I'd rather see maybe freeze the fees or have a less of an impact on lowering the fees, but I'd like to see the bottom line impact.
One thing to consider with the fees though is that, we're basically having developers pay the city for the extra burden that we have to review their developments and review their zoning applications. So it's really meant to pay for that. So I just want to kind of point that out.
Yeah. Yeah, but we can look at and do an analysis if the council would like, yeah. So what that does.
Councilor Fish?
I agree. I think whatever we can do to help encourage more development, and I also hear our fees seem to be quite high in comparison to other municipalities. But the big concern also is how that net effect will affect, our budget and our income. So if we could see that, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Councilor Mallard?
Do we have a comparison with other communities on fees?
We have kept up with that. We do have a table of that, so we can also show you that.
Okay,
I mean,
because
it's tough to compare because other communities, don't have staff, they're smaller populations. But there are other communities we could look at that are similar to us.
but the one in particular, the minor site plan revision has dropped from $3,437 to $70. Give me a clue as to what's going on.
Well, the amount of staff time it takes to administrate minor site plans is pretty minimal.
Then why would, I guess the question I have is if originally it was $3,400 and you're going to 70, there must have been a logical reason for it to be 3,400.
For the original, I think it was in relation to what the major site plan was when we set it.
Yeah, I honestly don't, and I don't know how long these fees have been in place and this structure, so.
Yeah, we put minor site plan in 2018.
But you also dropped major site plan development from $3,100 to $690. So I mean, that's quite a big drop.
I
And you
mean,
must have had some justification for it, but I don't see it. And it would be nice to know
Right, we're
why.
looking at what the number of, how much staff time it takes to.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
I guess back to the original question, why was it so high to start with? There must have been a logical reason. They didn't just pull a figure out of the air and say, we're gonna charge $3,500.
Well, site plan has been around in the code for a very long time, so it probably, what happened was, fees usually go up by a certain percentage every year. So it just probably.
Stop right there.
built
You're
on
saying that
itself.
we adjust this yearly?
yes, it keeps going up by percentage based on what inflation.
Yeah,
And I would also guess too, when these were first put into place, that staff time might have been greater just because they didn't have technology as much as we have now, and that might have influenced that.
It just seems a drastic change to go from $3,500 to $70.
I will note, like the high end of these fees, we rarely, if ever, see any project even triggering those. So the biggest impact this will have would be on the small end of the fee schedule.
Other questions, comments? Yeah, Councilor Beck?
I would just say, usually with the lowering fees, isn't that part of our implementation plan or housing? One of the things to improve housing is, going after and reducing fees where we can. So I'll be curious to hear what kind of feedback we get from developers going forward after something like this is implemented. And I'm assuming it'll be positive, obviously, and hopefully it generates some more interest in Bangor.
I want to thank you for looking at the fee structure. I think that was really important to be doing that. The fact that fees were coming down in a day and age when everything else is going up, I took that as a positive sign, as to Councilor Beck's point. And I honestly don't feel as though it's going to be a material amount of what we charged last year to what this year, or what this proposed would be. So we'll postpone this and get some more information. We'll go from there.
Okay.
All right, next up.
So the next one is,
Setbacks.
yep. So this is just to follow up with more information about the parking setback discussion we had last time. You all had wanted to see the areas that would be impacted by that proposal, so I created maps of the 3 different areas with URD1 in the city, and then also just some examples of particularly difficult lots where there are parking lots where they would be significantly impacted by going to a C buffer versus an A buffer. The minimum A buffer with being 6 feet and the minimum C buffer being 20 feet. So.
Questions, comments?
Can I comment?
Yeah, in a minute. Questions, comments? Councilor
I
Mel.
need enlightenment. I'm confused. In URD1, what are the setback it currently?
There's currently no setbacks.
That's
listed.
what I
Yeah.
thought. So this is gonna grandfather everyone that's there now?
It would.
So I guess the question I have is, what percentage of the URD1 is it going to affect?
Well, there's no way to tell that because it would only be, it would only affect those who are redeveloping and who have to come in for a building permit or a site plan.
But in URD1, it's gonna be very difficult to have 6-foot setbacks. Because of I'm thinking about, there's a URD2 across the street from me that when they changed the percentage of green space that they were required, they ended up filling 90% of the lot with parking spaces. As a URD1, I can fill 90% of my lot with parking spaces. So if I do, when you come, and then they change the rules, that's not gonna be affected. Is that not correct?
Well, first, the maximum impervious is actually 75 to 80% in URD1. The
What is
setbacks.
it, URD two, excuse me?
URD two, I think it's 80%. The setbacks, I mean, do kind of interchange with that because you have to meet both setbacks and impervious, so by increasing the setbacks, you are, you know, increasing the green space a little bit on the property, but they are two separate things.
Would you say, I just don't see that many URD one properties that are going to be advantageously affected by this, because most of the lots are small. And a small lot, you're not gonna be able to change the green space percentage by enough to require a 6-foot buffer.
Yeah, I mean, where there's tight lots, you know, they have to work with what they have to work with, but I do think, you know, based on what I looked at with our current, like some of these example lots, I do think they would have the space with a 5-foot setback to put parking, and meet that impervious requirement, but
There are questions, Councilor Dean?
Say one of these structures was not salvageable and it was taken down, how far up can we build now in these areas?
that hasn't changed for URD one and two. For URD one, I think the maximum height is 35 feet, and then URD two is 40 feet.
And that would be how many stories?
So 35 is roughly 3, and then 40 is roughly 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Seeing none, here the individual.
Yes. Hi, I'm Carol Cutting. I was here last time. There's the setbacks are one thing. There are two parts of this. The setbacks are the first part. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sorry, trouble talking. The setbacks are the first thing because there is currently no setback. This is my yard before and this is my yard now. So there is no setback. So a 6-foot setback would give some kind of a setback. But the second part is to allow 5 to 10 cars in there, such as in URD 2. So for this example down here, they are 6 feet away from the fence actually now, but we'll be adding up to 6 more cars there along the way. So what you're doing is creating a huge backyard parking lot. And my point is it's not really needed, A, because on-street parking is now allowed. B, what did they do before now? So, excuse me, get to my notes. And the map that I looked up online, it's nice because there was a question, thank you. Yeah. Stress. There was a question about what impact, what lots would, how much the band would be impacted. It was helpful to see the map. However, it's kind of confusing, correct me if I'm wrong, but all the properties abutting the yellow zone are already having allowed 6 to 10 cars there. So basically all of Bangor would be affected other than the rural residential district, which were the far out as we meet Glenburn and the other areas. So basically, am I wrong that, am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I mean, URD one doesn't really go past 128.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is all the map shows a URD 1, but also all the abutting areas, all of Bangor basically would be affected by this, not just the yellow ones. Because next to the yellow zones, they're already allowed to put 6 to 10 cars there with a buffer zone. And what you're doing is you're reducing the buffer zone from what is 20 feet now to 6 feet. And that's pretty close. If you have a backyard swimming pool or a parking lot or anything like that for kids, for recreation, like mine, I have these cars parked on the backyard. Do you want 6 feet, 6 to 10 cars or 1 to 5 cars? Up to 10 cars parking 6 feet from your fence, facing your pool and your grill where your kids are playing. It really affects the recreation ability of Bangor, I think. And it's not needed because they can park in the street because you've lowered that, you've lowered the amount of per apartment cars that are required. And it's kind of confusing because it's not designed to help the backyard parking. It's basically designed to put more in. And my other question is the permeable surface area. It's supposed to be like 70%, what you said? How is this going to affect that? You're definitely coming into it. I mean, some of the pictures are showed online where it's difficult to get cars in. What are they doing now? And not everybody's going to be as courteous as the photo with the neighbor with a huge hedge fence, because trees take a while to grow, and the amount of trees per 100 feet that are required. This right here, goes back 50 feet, and I got 4 cars parking there. You're asking, and you're saying that I could have 10 more, and the one behind it has 4 cars parking there, so within a 50-foot area, I can have 20 cars facing my yard. That's just a lot for Bangor homeowners and your constituents. For me, it's a different problem because my service, Beamer district is concerned, but for me, it's an even greater problem because my service dog, I have Tourette's, because I did first line responders, child protective. And whenever a car pulls in, I literally scream, feel like I'm having a heart attack and shake for the next hour. Okay, these people shove the cars in there because they're not the most convenient landlords in Bangor. We don't have them. We have some great landlords that are apartment landlords. And we have some that are not. And for my dog that's learning to make me feel safe with my PTSD and Tourette stuff, he can't be trained because he's always on guard for people calling in. Because literally, they are literally coming right up to almost my picnic table. This is only a 20-foot area between that and my extended driveway. I only have 20 feet of approximate grass. So I guess I'm urging people to think of what it does to Bangor when you're saying all of Bangor can park. I support at least a 6-foot buffer, but to park up to 10 cars there, why is that needed? Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Good luck.
Other thoughts? Questions? This has been to planning board,
Yes,
yeah,
and they were fine with it.
and they're fine. Councilor Leonard?
Were there any other, any people of public comment that expressed, similar concerns or anything like that, or?
No, there hasn't been.
Okay.
I just want to clarify a few things. A, people would still have to meet the impervious surface limit.
Right.
And B, there's currently no maximum number of spaces you can have in URD1. It's really dictated by your impervious, your buffers and setbacks and those different dimensional requirements. So, somebody could have, and if you did have over 10 spaces in URD1, you would have to have a 20-foot buffer. So this really just impacts between parking lots between 5 and 10 spaces.
Other questions? Comments, Councilor Fish?
So in this lady's situation, it would impact, the difference between 6 and potentially, what did you say, 10 or 20 vehicles? Do we know how many other residents it could have that potential impact on this change?
Do you mean like current residents that have, or current lots that have between 6 and 10
Yes.
parking spaces? There's really no way to tell that because even if you looked just at the aerial imagery, like a lot of these are gravel parking lots, and so you can't really tell exactly how many number of spaces are on each one. There's not really a good way to get that number.
Other questions? Happy to see a motion. Do we want more information?
Take no action or.
Well, I know, I just, I'm looking around.
I'm not on your committee.
No, yeah, but you commented earlier.
I think that I would like to have more information, with the situation just explained, it's definitely a huge impact for that resident. And I would like to have a better understanding of how potentially, how many other residents could be impacted in a similar way. And how the current law, and I know there's certain restrictions now, so when it's explained, it seems like it's minimal, but when we hear from a resident, it sounds like it's more than minimal. So maybe if we could have some idea of how many potential people would be impacted and what that impact would be with this new rule compared to what already exists. Thank you.
Councilor Dean?
Well, I'm not on the committee, but
Oh, you
Currently,
can't
are we just doing case by case? So when you get a building permit, then they get a parking
Right,
lot
and
permit,
that's when it would be,
and that's a problem? Or it's just not consistent? Is that, we just want more consistency?
yeah, it's a consistency issue and a
Yeah.
buffer issue.
Because you have these rules for all these other zones except URD1 and UID. And I can't remember what else I was gonna say, but yeah, just to be
Yeah,
consistent.
it's more of a consistency issue,
And
yeah.
clarity as well, that's what I was gonna say. The fact that URD1 is not called out in that buffer section. And the fact that there's no setbacks currently for URD1 makes it seem like there's also no required buffer for URD1. So, you know, you might find in a lot of things that you're not seeing a buffer because it's not really clear in the code. And so that was one of the purposes of putting that in there.
Councilor Mallon?
Two quick questions. Who enforces the buffer zones and the percentage of green space? Is that the code enforcement?
Yeah, as part of
Okay.
an application.
So I guess my question would be, of the URD2s we have out there, how many are in compliance?
Yeah, again, we don't have a way of knowing.
We have a way of knowing, we can check the tax records, there are maps.
Well, that won't have that information on it, how much
Well, then-
impervious cover there is.
So what you're doing is waiting for someone to complain about something before we take care of it.
No, when they get a building permit.
But if they're already built, there's no building permit.
Right, and I think that's what we've been saying is that this would really be
Yeah.
effective for new construction.
Yeah.
You're going
Okay, I
forward.
understand that, but before you do it with new construction, you've got to go back and see where we stand for old construction, in my opinion.
Are you saying apply this retroactively?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying how many people are in violation now on URD2s? Because if we've had the rule in effect for URD2s for 20 years, haven't enforced it, what makes you think we're gonna enforce it for URD1?
One of the problems is that when somebody's just expanding their parking and they're only adding like 1 or 2 spaces, there's nothing in our code that requires them to come in. And so that's a problem. That's why you might see some of these things happening. And, you know, that's something we can look more deeply into when we're doing the code rewrite, but you know, that might be to blame for a lot of what you're seeing.
Right. I mean, the enforcement's at the time of building permit.
Yeah.
Council,
You know,
Councilor Leonard?
Just out of curiosity, and like, I guess I'm gonna have to rewatch this, planning board meeting, cause I think we're gonna need more information on this, but, was this at all like a large discussion or contentious at all, or was it fairly straightforward?
With planning board, no, it was not contentious.
Okay.
So, you know, I didn't really have any comments.
So the only comment I have is with the reevaluations going on, are they looking at this so it could be tackled to Councilor Maller's point?
Well, they'll be looking at, I mean, my understanding, is they're really looking at the use and condition, I mean, other factors. They're not gonna go out and measure impervious cover or
Okay.
things like that, no. As part of their work. Correct.
that gets back to someone had to measure impervious cover at some point in time, did they not? To determine how much the fees were going to be.
At the time of
So,
building permit.
looking at what they've already done, can we tell how many are in compliance and are not?
We could, that would be, you know, a massive undertaking, you know. Maybe we can do that as part of the land code rewrite work.
It's just that I know of several properties in our area that are exceed the or don't have less than the required amount of green space. And it would appear to me what's happening there is we're promoting paving over everything. And that reminds me that perhaps we don't want people to move into the apartments that have children because there's no green space for them to play other than the street. And I don't think that's what we want. I think we want to be open to families, not just single parents, but families. And if you don't check or inspect the green space requirements, then you've eliminated the family.
Sounds like we'll be bringing this subject back. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for comments, except for Councilor Tremble. LD 901.
Yes, LD 901 is a resolve directing the Maine State Housing Authority to negotiate for the purchase or acquisition by eminent domain, the land and buildings commonly known as the Bangor Mall. Fiscal note of $25 million. We're here, this is, I mean, this is affecting Bangor. It's not a statewide thing, so we wanted to come and bring it to your attention. And I know Deb has spoken with the senator, so.
And I did speak with Senator Baldacci. His goal was to help entice the redevelopment of the mall. We did speak about, the way it's written. You're creating a new housing authority. Do you really want to turn it over to Maine State Housing? It doesn't seem to allow for mixed-use redevelopment or light manufacturing, which we feel would probably be a good fit out there. He indicated an openness to be whatever, and I think he's really looking at, he's likely gonna just request that the item be carried over into the next session, so I guess we'd like to just weigh in to say we would support Senator Baldacci's request to carry this over and like to look at ways to really make this more effective for the community.
Thumbs up.
That's what Rich.
But if this resolve goes through or this goes through, doesn't the city of Bangor lose a lot of control about mixed
Yep.
use? I mean, isn't this
Yep.
Maine Housing Authority's Maine Housing Authority?
Yep,
So why would we want to have that happen?
I was just looking to get it pushed off and not happen this year. I would agree, but if the state's willing to kick in $25 million and take on eminent domain, I'm I do believe that there's an opportunity when the judge's decision is released. I think a lot of it hinges on what the judge's decision is going to be in our suit regarding the notices of violation.
So we would be able to come back and have this amended or have some input?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. He indicated he'd be more than happy to amend it in some way, shape or form. I think lots of times what folks are doing is they'll put in bills in the first session, knowing that it's likely not the best and final offer, if you will, because come the second year of the session, they have to go through a whole process to get a bill introduced. So lots of times I think bills go in knowing they may not come to fruition this year, but have the ability to carry forward.
And it gives them time to work on it,
Correct.
yeah.
I think that there's room for amending.
Yes,
That would be
Yeah.
great.
correct.
Who's in control?
It'd be
is-
us.
It should be us.
I would agree with that.
I also don't, like the amount. Was it 20 to buy?
It just says 25, yeah,
5 to
20 million to buy.
I think they should be flipped
I
to a
agree.
large degree.
I agree.
They bought it for 12.
I know.
They've sold off big portions.
Yes,
That could easily be flipped because I think there's a lot of infrastructure that's gonna need to be
Yes.
done.
I would agree.
That's all I'll say. Anything else? All right, anything else from you? No,
So-
we're good. All right, we're adjourned.
Oh, wait, I did have one thing, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, just one good news.
Sorry, we have some good news. I just wanted to give a quick update. I know you're pressed for time. We have, met, some months ago with GE, about an expansion that they're planning at their existing facility here in Bangor, and, I communicated with them today, actually, and, they are moving forward with, making those expansions, and it'll add 50 jobs. So, yeah, it's great it's definitely great for the city, and that investment, $20 million investment that they're making into the property will be really good for that area too.
So they're expanding the building size or just?
No,
It's the
my
equipment.
understanding is just the
Equipment.
equipment, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, and they were looking at all of their facilities in the US. And they were kind of going around each place, and
Yeah.
I think part of it is. It's a well-run operation, part of it is likely because the tax structure in Maine. It's likely exempt from personal property taxes. But the city on the flip side will get a refund of those lost
Right.
personal property taxes, and the fact that it will add 50 skilled jobs is pretty significant, so.
yeah,
Right.
and it's jobs at all levels, which
Yeah.
is great.
I know, no, I think it was about 25 years ago when they expanded the
Yeah.
physical plant, but it's, And we compete, not compete, but the
Right.
other facilities similar to ours is Schenectady.
Schenectady, New
Yeah,
York,
so-
yep.
And they didn't, we went out over them.
I don't know,
Oh,
they may have invested some money there, but the fact that we got it's a $20 million investment, 50 jobs was a big win.
And Phil's not here, but was there an issue with, I don't know if you know, Ian, was there an
Yes.
issue in the last couple of years with the
Yes,
tax assessment?
Yeah.
We got all,
yes,
everybody's happy?
yes,
They must be because they did this.
Yeah.
Must be happy. okay.
yes, there was. a
Good
problem.
point. All right, anything else?
Yeah, that's it.
Adjourned.